What's harder, becoming a bare-knuckle boxing world champion or growing up in Wales?
Oh, that's a tough question. I think when I go back to my childhood, unfortunately, that my childhood was not great. You know, my role models were heroin addicts and alcoholics. So for me growing up in that, me growing up through that as a child, I got to see many things, and many things happened to me that no child should ever go through. So I was brought up through the foster care system, living in hostels, living with people who didn't really care about me, even though they were better homes than I was brought up in. And then also, you know, understanding that the attachment to my mum, that I loved her, but I understand that she was ill. But at that young age, you don't understand that. You just see someone putting you in life-threatening situations and seeing things that you should never or ever go through. You know, I used to, you know, save my mother's life every day because she would get so drunk that she'd swallow her tongue. The house would catch on fire. I've had 4 houses catch on fire when I was a kid. You know, it'd be people in my home. I'd be walking around needles, bottles of methadone, you know, and then my stepfather, you know, on the other side, that how my mum became that. Also, that, you know, the domestic abuse, you know, the violent behaviours from him. Obviously, then he would take that out on me as a young child. Like, me, I'm a small guy, you know, so when I was little, I looked like Mowgli, you know, so, like, for me, you know, the violence that was shown was absolutely horrific.
And from what age was that? When you
From the age of 3 to the age of 10, 11, like the likes of just, I used to get beat with the metal side of the belt every day, you know, and I used to laugh in his face because I just wouldn't show that he could hurt me. Then the next day I couldn't sit down for a week. I still got marks on my ass from it, like, you know. But what I'm trying to say is like going through those behaviours and from other people that you had no control of when you're a child was, like you said, again, it's horrific because you have no control of that. And social services back in them days, they weren't as on it as they are today. Mm-hmm. A lot more things happened years ago, you know, and the sad thing is that you still have that attachment to love your mum because I was in her stomach for 9 months, you know, and I was hoping that she'd get better. So I was in and out of foster care all the time, going to different homes. And then there's a time in your life where I became a broken child. So, you know, birthdays, Christmases, you get all these promises, you know, Dan, baby, you're going to have this, we're going to buy this for you. But my mum was these people, alcoholics and drug addicts, are very smart. Mm-hmm. They keep their foot in the door. They turn up to the twice a month lack review while I'm getting looked after by somebody else. So they know when it comes to the age of 16, they hoping that child will come back and look after them. While they still take drugs, so I'd still take alcohol. It'd be me who'd be putting bread and milk in the cupboards and the fridge, you know? So, and I could see growing up through foster care how that happened with my other foster brothers and sisters. The vicious circle was the child always had the attachment to the parent. Because social services didn't step in for adoption quick enough, then that child will always have that attachment with the parent, doesn't matter what it's been through. So when it gets to the age of 16, they're entitled to go back home or have their own little independent flat. They have help, they have funding for that. 9 times out of 10, they go back to try and fix the parents. Mm-hmm. And then the child hasn't got the capability to do that at 16 years of age. It's still a child that hasn't had a childhood. So when they are trying to look after mom, put food and drink in the cupboards and the fridges, then there's only so much that child can do. And then all of a sudden the child becomes the parent.
Yeah.
Do you understand? So sadly, that's what happened. And I could see this happening growing up. And when I got to the age of, I think I was 12, my mum went to prison. She got convicted of stabbing someone. She was in a woman's prison up in Liverpool or something like that. It was quite far away for 4 years, the time was. And in that time, I had hope because I knew that my mum, when she was in jail, I knew she'd be clean and sober. Okay. She's away from the world. This is the perfect time for her to sort her life out. Accept professional help. Be honest with herself and accept that she needs that help. And we did. I had thousands of letters in those years she was in jail. And when I went to a really good foster home at the age of 11, 12. So the time my mum was in jail, this was the actual first foster home that actually loved me like their own child. But I couldn't love them back at the time because I still had attachment to my mum. And these foster parents were unbelievable. They taught me how to eat my food. They taught me, manners, respect. I had a curfew. I had to be in at the age. I had to be in by 6 o'clock before it got dark. That was never heard of. I was robbing schools when I was 6, 7 years of age. I was trying to be with the big boys.
Yeah.
Because it's just a mechanism of surviving. I had to do what I had to do. But in that time, I had thousands and thousands of letters off my mum, promises. And I was already half broken by then from the things that I was going through and the trauma that came after that. And then I came really close to this foster family, and I did, I could see what they doing for me. They changed my whole life, but I still was attached to my mum. But the final break of me to get what I am right now was the day my mum came out of jail. Then she phoned me and she was drunk and full of drugs. And that was the day I said to my foster parents, I said, this is the day that you become my mom and dad. I said, and now I can love you. And now I can accept the love that you give me back. Because before I couldn't accept that. Because again, my attachment was my mum. Mm. But even at that age, 11, 12 years of age, I could make such a mature decision. I had to cut off what was toxic, and that was her. I knew that if I had her still in my life, that I was going to become that, or dead or in jail.
And then how long from that moment where you decided to cut her off, you continued with your foster family, with that foster family?
Well, the most important thing was that they accepted my decision. They could have said, no, Dan, that's your mum, etc. But they allowed me, they respected my decision. So I did. On that day onwards, I didn't speak to her. I cut all ties. Mm-hmm. And no one could believe it. And that's not because I'm a bad person, but this person, I realized then, was just a name on a birth certificate. At that age, I needed someone to support me, basic needs, feed me, roof over my head, take me to school. Mm-hmm. Before that, I had none of that. And many worse things than that was happening. So when I came to making that decision, Luke, was that I knew I was going to have trauma after that. And I knew I was in a good place to expose that trauma because I had good people around me.